that surge never came to the.
And there's a little,
to
is
zero,
she
did it?
losing weight? Is she really sick?
No.
She just
Zero
had.
that day,
she-
but I was told somebody who did it, no, it did not.
You're right.
Effort into the street, so I'm hoping that someone will get on it.
Around other dogs.
Oh,
Is it hard to
see,
get
it seems like from the bay it
Still
came up.
being lovely.
3:01, I better get going.
I say that about my dog.
Hey, Bill.
She's very fit, motivated. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's called to order. Here it is. Allegiance? Shall? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Okay, roll call.
Bill.
Okay.
Rose Larkin.
Mary Rose Follett.
Bruce Hall.
Steve Johnson.
Rick Fossum?
Veach, council liaison.
Chad Schutz, environmental staff, and Miss DeBeers.
Here, yes, Mrs. DeBeer.
She asked for a to be excused obligation.
Great. We have one addition to the agenda prior to approving it. Chad wanted to show some of the photos, a little photo montage from the ETA effects to the dunes and to the beach. And
Okay.
did you decide we need to start with that, or do we fit that in?
Yeah, we can go to current items if you want to wait until then.
Ah.
Get through the.
Okay. You can do that.
Oh, if you want to add it.
No,
to
where do you want? Yeah, I'm asking you. We're adding it to the.
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay.
Once we get to current items, add it into there first thing.
Okay, first thing. Gotcha. Okay, so, all in favor?
Well, I'll move
Don't
that we
make a
approve
motion.
it.
Yep,
Yeah, I'll
make a
move that we
motion.
approve the amended, schedule, whatever,
Agenda.
agenda.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Naysayers? Motion carries then, right?
Thank you.
We do it? Okay. Approve the previous meeting minutes. Any corrections? Did everybody get them?
Yeah, they look good to me.
I have corrections, however, it's not really a correction, but lack of my voice being heard due to not having a speaker in front of me. So I don't remember where I actually had asked the question to the speaker, Mitch Brown.
Uh-huh.
But I had asked him what the purpose was for selling turtles, and I believe his response was because he likes them. But
I do remember that. Okay.
And I had a correction, and actually there was something else I just noticed. And my correction was probably because of the mask and I was too far from a speaker. Back under, it's number 9 listed on the meeting minutes, but the numbering is my other note that I think public comment was number 9, and that member items and reports is number 10. So that's a number thing, but anyway, so under number 9 or 10, it's that I purchased a mini reef system, and that was the thing that was constructed with the polypropylene rope
Right.
instead of nylon. It wasn't that I just went out and bought a bunch of rope and
Right.
stuff. It was a mini reef system.
Or rope, yep, mini read. All right. Handle that, Chad. Do you take care of that and correct the minutes?
Yeah, we'll hear it on the.
Playback? Okay.
Try to approve them as amended.
Correct. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the minutes as amended. Two amendments.
Second it? Favor?
I
Okay, motion carries. Good, okay. Public comment? Off we go. Items. This is where you want to...
Yes,
Okay.
please. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick show and tell of the effects of Hurricane Ada on the island. The beach is our biggest marine resource, so I thought it was appropriate to for the committee, kind of what I've been seeing up and down. Hurricane Ada, Tropical Storm Ada turned into Hurricane Ada, turned into Tropical Storm, turned into Hurricane Ada. It was kind of noteworthy hit for land masses, Central America, Cuba, Florida Keys, then back out and then into Tampa. So it was worthy. Significant storm surge. Hopefully, non-believers in dunes gain some appreciation for some resiliency against storm surge, being that this was just a tropical storm at the time, and how severe it was for the island. So kind of starting from the north and working our way south. So everybody who's familiar with the dunes that were created as part of the last renourishment project, previous staff had created a managed beach zones where plantings were done and established a really healthy dune system, as we saw. And I just kind of took note of the heights and then kind of where the scarps kind of were into those beach zones. These are 2019 aerials on Google Earth. So it's not the latest and greatest of where the dunes were at, but it's pretty close. So you can see pink shell, heavily scarped. Where that line is, this is a kind of a little bit more difficult to see, but you can see, anywhere from a couple feet to 10 feet or so of significant dune was taken out. Sizable in there. Working our way down to Best Western. Again, a lot of vegetation taken out in areas. Then even at Royal Beach Club, where there's two dune zones that were planted, they were completely wiped out. They weren't that high. You can see how much sand was taken off of Lynn Hall if you've ever been down there. That dune walkover used to be flush with the sand, so it gives you an appreciation of the volume of sand that was either pushed up onto the dune or translocated back out. System, hopefully. The scarps weren't as big as you went north. It's kind of a wider beach downtown. Once you get away from the pier, it widens out, and here's over at Red Coconut. Again, a lot of sand got pushed up onto upland property, and you can see some scarping there. Vendors kind of got caught a little unprepared. You can see that vendor kiosk, looks like it floated a bit. Hopefully nothing can get pulled into any structures or damage anything. Something to take note of. The possibility of getting some significant storm surge. And a little bit of scarping around the 3,500 area of Estero. Then the beach gets, we have some vegetation. This is at low tide. I believe, yeah, low tide. So, I know it must be at high tide. Sorry. You can see how far up it is to that salt grass. A little bit burnt, but not too bad. But the scarping wasn't as bad as this end of the island.
Actually gains that park bench, but it's got an extra foot.
Yep. I'm here at Newton Park. See at high tide, this dune walkover is kind of partially some water underneath it. So they definitely lost some sand, waterwood of the seawall. Some of the properties where it's a little bit open, and you have, this area, you would see water in the other properties. It's just, it's vegetated, so you don't see it, but this is kind of typical of a salt marsh area. It's just this place is not as vegetated. And as we go towards Flamingo, to the left of there again is salt marsh, and then where it's unvegetated, you have still wetland, but it's just not vegetated, so, the lagoon flowing out, near Wyndham, pretty significant flow. The lagoon's fairly high. Not sure if it's still flowing as of today. The lagoon is pretty high. This is usually, grass and a kind of a sand access area, kind of near the condo areas. The lagoon is pushed up onto. Beach has gotten really skinny over at Bermuda Dunes, and this is Bermuda Dunes looking towards Estero Beach and Tennis Club. Lost a significant amount of sand. Here's the pier over at Leonardo Arms, about 40 plus feet of it. Got significant destruction of the structure. As of yesterday, they've definitely done a lot of work and made it a lot safer and taken off some of that loose pilings or loose planks and decking, and I believe they're going to remove the pilings that are kind of standing out at where it's low tide. They're very exposed, and then even at high tide, you can't see them, but kind of pose a safety risk.
You have any comment on them, what they're planning?
Maybe they just remove it, yeah.
I think they want to keep it there. That's my understanding. Yeah, so they have truncated that area that's waterwood of the roof structure. They've removed planks and decking, waterwood of the roof structure, and right now it's just some pilings that are, half a dozen or so pilings that are out there that they're gonna plan to remove, and with ACP staff with the state to understand if there's any issues with that. So here's the CWA at Leonardo Arms, kind of facing south. If you look at the aerial, you'll see how much sand's gotten pushed up into the CWA. You can see that pier. This is waterwood of Bermuda Dunes, 2019 aerial, how wide that is. And if you see all that white next to the pier, how it's, pretty much filled in the lagoon in that area. And that's typical coastal process. We have these lagoons formed, and you have a big storm. That barrier sand spit just kind of marches in and closes up the lagoon. So
Kind of a standard process, even for like islands like ours, right? And to migrate landward.
yep. So that inlet at Riviera has opened up fairly significantly. How long? It seems like everybody likes that water flushing there, so they're appreciating that. And here on the south end, kind of give you an appreciation. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little yellow dot kind of in the left of the aerial. It kind of shows that mangrove line, and as you can see at high tide, those mangroves are underwater now. So just kind of gives you an appreciation for how much sand was pushed up, moved along. And the south end, Carlos Point Beach, that inlet again at high tide. There. Oh wait, let's see. Also something I wanted to go over. So FDEP has guidance on post-storm guidance of what you can do and what level of permitting is needed. There's a document published by FDEP which gives a play-by-play order for pretty much all of their entire department's jurisdiction, or however you want to say it. So everything from waste management and air quality to water resource management, such as dredge and fill. What requires notice? What requires local permitting? What requires state permitting or site inspections, etc. So if anybody, in the public has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And also, there's also a list of exempt activities that's referenced in that emergency order that people can do. Things like, we have sand that's been pushed up onto our upland property, turn that to the beach as long as it's clean sand. That's an example of an exempt activity. Things are exempt, some things require, at this stage, local permitting, and then our staff is required to notice FDEP. In some cases, depending on the activity, they must apply to the FDEP for a permitting within a certain time frame, like 30 days or 90 days, depending on what the activity is.
Are there any property owners now that are replacing sand or removing sand and putting it?
Yeah, there's been some interest. I haven't gotten any applications. I just kind of drew up the application yesterday, and so I'll start distributing that to people who've shown interest and get their details and site plans, et cetera, of what they want to do.
The machinery and everything else to move, right?
Yep. It's tough to move truckloads of sands with just
Shovel by it, yeah.
I've seen a couple of properties moving it using wheelbarrows, Lua, and they've been working hard,
Sure.
keeping all that up and pushing it out to the beach and making piles. They've made a lot of progress.
That's all I have. If any of you all have any questions or go on with the
I actually do have a question. What was the reason behind where they actually were distributing the sand from dredging? Why did they decide on the area between Kai and Coconut?
that area is designated as critically eroded. It's an area, I mean, if you look at the pier where it is right now, eroded area designated by FDEP. The reason why they put it near shore, less permitting involved, and there's less stringent requirements for the soil. So dredging, you can get more fines. May not be necessarily beach compatible, but they're near.
You expect it to migrate north, you said before?
That's been the trend. Kind of on the shore as the storms push it up. That might be why those areas, they didn't have, just still nice and wide there.
And I note that there's really big dunes just under the water, under the water. Even though the sand is off the beach, a lot of times it doesn't go very far. It doesn't go very far.
Yep, that's what I'm hearing. Just don't panic. The fair weather winds will kind of fair weather waves will lap it back up.
Okay. Onward and up there, 320. First on the item, Street Lighting Selection Advisory Committee nomination. I'm assuming this is for the street lighting project.
Sir, so the direction's been given to somebody on MRF, along with somebody on the safety committee, to that selection committee. So it's up to y'all to select among yourselves to somebody.
Nominate Steve, as he's the one who knows the most about acceptable and unacceptable lights. If you're willing to do it, Steve.
Happy to do it. Any more nominations?
You want to fight him for it? Well, you're definitely the one who knows the most. You're the most knowledgeable.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
In regards to the lighting, I did talk to Eve earlier today, and she had mentioned something about the new, maybe town clock at Times Square, and that we just need to make sure that whatever is replaced, it is compliant.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Now that Jennifer's mentioned that, I'll just add that if we keep the same clock, it's my understanding that there's a film on the sides, the north side and the west side, that makes the lights turtle safe, and Turtle Time would be willing to provide that if we have to move the clock and need a new one. We can go on record as saying, Turtle Time will pay for it. And I don't understand what this film is, but she said that it's up there now, it's on the clock now.
I think it's a 3M film.
The 3M film, you have it on your,
But she said that we would pay for it again. Indeed, we need it.
hey,
I personally think the town probably pay for
yeah, I think
it.
those, the final lighting
Since
project
it's
will have
being
to be approved,
compliant
yeah.
with our town codes, it's
That's
something that,
different, I think, than that's, right now, it might be outside the preview of the lighting project, right now, the street lighting project. Any of the new projects,
Yeah, that's a different, we're talking,
Right.
this is street lighting, and that's,
right, but it would make sense that maybe they take a peek at that too, or
Pull
they
it all
actually,
together.
whatever they choose, you hope would be rolled into Times Square too, to keep things contiguous.
There'll be other lighting on the Times Square project too, that'll,
Oh.
just the clock.
Oh, yeah, right,
right.
for
They
sure,
redone.
yeah.
And no, my understanding too with the process, and Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we put out a request for quote, we didn't get any replies.
Correct.
So now I think we've modified the request and
Twice, yeah, the next one's due December 2nd.
I'm not, we're talking about the Town Square?
Lighting, no,
Like
the
the
lighting
street
in
consultant.
general.
I'm not sure, I'd have to check with Chelsea.
That was issued, I think it was issued the 21st, then they, it was in November, and then they extended it to December 2nd to open it.
and FP&L, of course, didn't, they were on the list too, and they did not return a quote. We're trying some other avenues to try to get FP&L to behave a little more,
Oh,
I should say.
right. That's the, we received bids? It's been reopened?
I haven't heard of any coming in.
We'll get it.
And I don't know, I think that, I don't know if it's Chad or somebody at town staff has tried to have a conversation to see why.
Yeah, I don't understand why that would be.
There's theories, but I don't know if I've heard anything concrete.
We made contact with companies.
Someone on staff has, I'm not sure who.
I mean, if you have any questions, I can down and send me an email.
Yeah. I mean, just as an FYI for the group here, they originally have this PAC, it's a advisory committee, whatever it is, yeah. And that'll have different people, there'll be somebody from Turtle Time on there, there'll be a resident, there'll be, Public Works will be there, Public Safety, and then the MRF member will all be there just for initial input to the consultant. And then after they, he or she does the work for the project, then actually they'll present to the Public Safety Committee and the MRF before it actually goes to council even. Make sure that there's not any looked at before it goes to council, I think.
This is the street lighting you're
This is
talking
the
about?
street lighting,
Good.
yeah.
What's the timeline?
November 2nd is when they open the bids for the second go-around for the bid offering. And basically, they don't plan for it to really kick off until January. So in December, the advisory committee will look at it, and they'll do the initial work on the project, the scope, and then I think they'll get started. Cool. Lighting program. How about fertilizer education? PIO Dexter.
Yep, so she printed out, I think, a couple hundred of the little placards, and our code enforcement and cruising up and down the street as they see landscape companies, they hand them out, and we've collected about a dozen or so landscape company contact details, which will be really useful. Continuing education, reminders, etc. Via email.
Good.
I think it educates, and it also establishes a line of communication with those that are working in the
Yeah, I attempted to try to get by NACE code or SIC code, listing of contacts that you could do mailing that apply fertilizer, and I wasn't very successful. What I did is I was looking through that. I thought, you know what? I can't believe. I thought we originally, when we worked on the fertilizer ordinance, we said we wanted to put a certification or licensing program in, so people had to come and learn how to do it, or learn what our code was. I looked at Marco's ordinance, and they have one. They have to be licensed there or certified. Same thing with Annabelle.
You mean like a commercial applicator license?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's in our code.
It is in our code, exactly. So, I mean, so the communication we're having, I think our communication plan needs to be commercial applicators. They need to come in here for our program, because I don't think we have a program yet, do we?
It's regulated by FDEX. I mean, that commercial applicator class is something they would take.
Is that what our town would do? Is send them or take their previous certification? Are you saying?
It's a state certification, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's a state regulated profession. Not sure if I understand.
Yeah, because actually, I mean, our ordinance states that there's a certification of commercial applicators. The town manager will establish a program for certification for commercial applicators who will not apply fertilizer without our certification. That means to me, it's sort of like, I mean, when I used to work, you go visit a plant or something, you'd have to sit in the trailer and watch a quick video before you're allowed on the plant. I don't know if there's, I mean, what's your read on that?
Let me circle back to you. Look at the verbiage. My understanding, I mean, if you're applying fertilizer commercially by state law, you should have a commercial applicator license. And I believe I
did find that, yeah.
understanding, I thought that our code was just kind of reiterating that requirement.
I think personally, our code is specific in certain particulars that others aren't, and that's actually what they're learning, not how to do it, but what they can and can't do. They can't apply 10 feet from some water bodies and that type of stuff. You can't, soil testing and things like that. So whereas the state certification tells them how to handle it, and whatever the state protocol is, our local ordinance is tighter than that. That's how it reads if you look at Sanibel's or Marco's, is that you have to go and basically get a sticker for your truck that says, I've been educated on how to apply fertilizer on Fort Myers Beach.
Gotcha.
Does the town require a copy of the certification?
They've been asking, or do they have the commercial applicator? I don't know if sure if that's something we can require them.
I would ask that we do.
It's 13-123. Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see what you think.
Along that line, you were saying that you were trying to find out their SIC codes, right? You know that there's an association, there's a National Association of Landscape companies, and there's a Florida division of it. And I'm betting if we reached out to that association, I don't think we'd get everybody, right? But we might be able to, that's what I was just Googling
They
here.
give you a list of membership, yeah.
Yeah, they might be able to give you a list of membership. Now, mind you, it's probably gonna be the higher end companies. If they're a member of a regional organization, probably a higher end company, but it might help that communication pathway, because you know that if they're aware of it and they see people who are not following the rules, they would be more likely probably to say, hey, we're being held to this standard, let's make sure that these folks are too.
Right.
But it might be a way to get that list, that communication list that we're looking for, an easy way to do it.
I know in experience in Marco is, I believe they actually have a permit for landscapers to must have to be a landscaper in Marco Island. I believe there's some continuation credits required, which over at the Rookery for landscaping. Fertilizer was in there. I took that class. It's something that's offered, I believe, through AFAS. Something maybe we establish that. So recommend.
I was digging because I thought, well, here we are trying to grab people one by one to teach them, or to try to communicate to them we have new fertilizer.
Yeah, I
ordinances,
think
but-
there's continuing education programs that are existing out there that you could leverage rather than trying to establish something.
Right, and I can imagine administratively that's kind of a pain in the butt, but
And I can contact IFAS of Lee County and see what they do with regards to continuing education for landscapers.
I think too, you can try to attack it from the customer side. Maybe send out letters to the condo associations.
Mhm.
And then, because now is about when you want to go out and fertilize,
right.
and the law, change of the law is in place. So, idea too, maybe that our PIO can do.
With this water coming up, I can tell you, you can just, the whole end of the block, our block was underwater, and you just imagine anything that's on that ground is in the bay. I mean, everything. Merged. It just pulled everything back into the water. It's pretty sobering to see it, and if you really consider what's happening, it's just, anyway, let's try to keep our water clean. Any other questions, any other issues on fertilizer education? Comments? You? On to the next one then. Times Square foliage recommendations. Oh, did anybody get a chance to watch the meeting that RMP, is that the name of them? Was it the 60% plan for Times Square?
Well, I'll tell you what the conversation went. I kind of suggested some big shade trees like oaks and things. The staff was saying that putting something that sheds a lot of leaves over a paved area becomes a maintenance problem for them. So they were kind of sticking with wanting palms to maintain over that kind of surface.
I remember this publication, this is from Fort Myers Beach, and it's just chock full of choices that would be a good idea for our beach. So I would just say that whatever we go with should be something that's included in this booklet, since we've already,
Put the
these
effort
people
into-
have done this work before. You know, depending on the height, you know, that we want of a given tree in a certain area, but it's all laid out for you here, whether you want tall trees, there's a list of them, if you want bushes, if you want plants. Nobody needs to reinvent the wheel, they just need to reference this. I know that we have in our library.
Right. Bill, did that discussion come up? I didn't get to see the,
Yes.
play
And
out
I was
there.
advocating for some stately oaks. The question I was having, so close to the water,
What did they say, Bill?
that, like I said, it said that it was problematical with all the leaves falling onto the pavers. Where somewhere like Bay Oaks or in Bayfront Park, there's going to be an area which is a rain garden, the water drains into it. That's a good place for shade trees. But over the pavers, they thought it was going to make things more.
the merchants, I hear the merchants also asked to have palms there.
I think, people.
Due to the debris that would be caused by a large shade tree or something?
There's a little bit of pushback. I mean, because, sable palms are our state tree. They're native, but they're not as iconic for people behind us here as coconut palms, which are invasive. And we also have, and then, the other thing is how do they self-prune? Falling palm fronds can do some serious.
Oil palms will self-prune.
Royal will, well, they
Are they
almost,
too big though, is that it?
royal palms the fronds are pretty heavy. Although royal palms are a good, they're good native and actually endangered in the wild trees.
And they clean themselves.
But the rub is when they do is somebody underneath them.
Exactly, yeah, that's the problem.
There are coconut palms there now, correct?
There are coconuts and some sables.
And the town owns those, correct?
Yeah.
You prune the self-pruning to avoid the damage to a human?
I don't know if they do it when they kind of droop down or, see, the thing I know about like coconut palms, they kind of drop, they get saggy long before they can, and you kind of yank them off depending on the tree. I'm not sure about royals. I think the royals maybe more just drop.
That's my understanding.
So you could eliminate the potential human safety aspect by just pruning them, which is what they're already doing with the tree there.
Yeah.
We prune our palms all the time, and they're always falling too. It's not gonna eliminate.
It's not gonna fix the problem.
So,
Any ideas, any other contributions to the Times Square foliage?
official.
Border palms. Don't have any Christmas palms or something that's not as high, well, not as tall as some of the other palms are. And I don't have a list in front. The book say.
You know, things like, I mean, there's some real spatial limitations because you have to keep that road open for the fire department, and then there's going to be these shade structures where you're going to go pretty much as far as you can go,
Right.
department's permission. So there's kind of a pretty narrow window to put them down the part that lines up with Estero. Now, the other part that lines up with Old San Carlos, that's more open.
Any other recommendations? We move on?
You guys can give a recommendation whether as far as palm trees, are you maple, coconut, or royal?
Oil for me.
Table for me.
Table for me.
Royals are nice, but when they get tall
State tree.
and those branches come down, they probably weigh 30 pounds.
Do.
No, I agree.
They're gorgeous, and they're really native, and they're a matter of choice.
Recommendation, Renee? She's looking like, I'm not
Yeah,
interested.
no, I don't know enough about the trees to necessarily make a recommendation. I would go with the sable ones, though, from a safety perspective.
Those are the only ones that don't drop their fronds.
Yeah.
There's also Bismarck. They're beautiful to look at.
With Bismarck up in North
We have
Dakota.
one here. I know we have a couple on.
Native to North Dakota.
I could find them.
Choke in there.
The sables have the advantage they wouldn't need fertilizer.
Right.
They are regulated by the state, and you can't trim them.
A tree, you can trim them, can't you?
Oh, I mean, our landscaper, when they came through, we said, could you trim this up? They go, nope, can't touch that one.
Come down if you
This is
want.
Bismarck.
Nope, you can't.
And up to 3 a year.
All right,
On your property, you can come right down, right? Is that what our ordinance says? That came up last,
Yeah, I've never heard of
Administration.
someone not being able to trim.
yeah.
Well, I
can
had
touch it.
someone actually tell me when I needed them to come for my fishtails, and they said, nope, will not touch those. And it's only because it's highly, people are allergic to,
Pollen or
no, whatever it is when you cut it,
sap or
sap, thank
something?
you. So was it because they couldn't,
they were cutting everything all around it, but they wouldn't, they said legally, they're not allowed to trim it.
legally?
Sable. These were people, professional trimmers, and
I know it's sables, and we have a bunch on our yard, and some of them, boots will stay on them, and some of the boots will come off.
Right.
Depends on the-
ANSI standards are 25% of the foliage annually, so that's tree shrubs.
Wouldn't consider that the boots as being a hazard. would you?
They're a lot smaller with sable than they are with the whole thing, but usually the boots are attached to something, but usually if they're interwoven on a tree, they're,
Little kid
we're gonna
pushed
stop.
into it.
We're going to stop cutting ours back at all. And the reason why is that they're good for bat habitat. Not
Nice
pretty.
little
I doubt
crevice.
that would fly in Times Square.
What'd you find on Bismarck, sweetie? Anything?
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. They've got a list of palm trees that they say
those
would be Bismarck, Canary Island date, Christmas palm, Florida thatch, foxtail, Malayan coconut, rhotus, royal, and sable. All those palms are possibilities. It would be up to
Foxtails,
us.
those are really easy to
Okay,
take
this
care of.
Bismarck is, it says it's a slow grower and the salt tolerance is medium. So we need something with high salt tolerance, right? All right, so let me see what it,
And I know they, of course,
Canary is medium, Christmas is medium, Florida thatch, they say is high salt tolerance. And foxtail is medium. Malayan coconut, we don't, because we don't want the nuts. The other Porotus, salt tolerance is medium. Royal salt tolerance is medium. Sable salt tolerance is high. The sable is the one that is probably the sable and the Florida thatch. They have high salt tolerance. That's what we want to make the deciding factor.
Questions? Are you looking for a recommendation, Councilman?
I'm hearing some consensus for the sable, but
Hmm?
Could have a variety.
Great. As long as you're here and share it with the,
share it.
I'm so, okay. I don't know how to write a letter, an edict with our recommendation. Next up, FMB dune management.
Anything you want to say on that first, or?
I'll let you get started here.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get some feedback on pros and cons from y'all, and hopefully y'all for maybe if you think it's a good idea to rolling this out for the entire island as a program to try and encourage dunes where dunes don't exist. Have in the document criteria for identifying properties where there's no vegetation, additional vegetation, and vegetated kind of based on the percentage of the property width that has a frontal dune or some dune vegetation that's, I believe it's 10 feet wider, 10 feet wide or greater,
Right.
perpendicular from the shore.
Right.
So if you have a 100-foot property, let's say, so 75-foot wide dune that's 10 feet
wide.
deep
Right.
or if that doesn't exist, try and plan it for that. So, and then the again, the concern for a lot of property owners is that liability of regulation on that. So allowing them to maintain that dune in it's placed over perpetuity. So relaxing that 10-foot rule to 2-foot raking to allow that dune to just to control that dune so it stays in place.
That's all under the managed beach zone for program. They'd have to apply, and because you said it's in perpetuity, right? Once they agree to it, then
Right, so there's a memorandum of understanding, or of agreement, it's, kept on file at the town to, affect compliance and to also, report to the state, back when the renourishment's done.
it's based on the renourishment again.
This was done in conjunction with the renourishment, and if
Right.
I'm remembering correctly, yeah, they're part of the criteria of renourishment. There's some language in there for establishing dunes. With the state funding or
What if, where no dunes occur now, a property owner decides they wanna just let the natural dunes, let nature take course and establish dunes in their property? They still, and they wouldn't then have the ability to manage them because they didn't end up as a managed.
You can always
So-
apply to FDEP to manage your beach area, get a triple CL permit, get a site plan, what you want to do, where you want to put it, et cetera, move things around, transplant, mitigate, et cetera. My understanding is this was a means for the town to assume some of that regulation rather than just leaning on FDEP and we'll see permitting to.
That would give them, like you said, even in an FDEP permit, that they could have whatever 25% clear. If it begins to grow over, let's say it's, as it grows, it's growing parallel to the water line across their property. Would they have also the ability in an FDEP permit to say, okay, once it exceeds 75% of my width of my property, I'm going to start
I mean, they're
trimming it back?
right. So, I mean, individual permits can be written individually with the criteria, conditions. Permit.
Okay, I
But
just have
that's,
never gone through
again,
that. I
that's-
don't know what they allow you to do, yeah.
Right. So that's conversation with the property owner and state to establish what they want to do. Site plan. I mean,
Oh, actually, there's a renourishment in the offing, isn't there? Isn't that what I read that?
right. So we're right now we are TDC gave us $300,000 towards permitting and design. So we are working on an RFP for that now. That will take the better part of a year plus to down with the agencies. And next year we would be applying for the portion TDC and state. This year we applied to TDC and the state for the non-important permitting portion, and then next year, so right now it's a $6 million project. The bulk of it's going to be next year when we apply for and funding.
Gotcha, so 300,000 is just for the admin portion.
Engineering, I mean,
More or less
engineering's not cheap.
engineering, right. Now, do you intend to apply this same program that you did last time? It was when Keith did it in
With
2012,
regards
was it?
to the managed beach zones?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that would be I believe you have to have vegetation there to get sand. That's kind of the rule of thumb.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an incentive for properties that don't have vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
reassure them that, dunes are good for their property's resiliency and reduce the liability of regulation on that area by allowing them to keep it.
So does the management plan, that was based on this original nourishment plan, correct? Okay.
Well, in conjunction with, yeah, I believe if you read the document,
I don't have the data. I mean, what was the date of the?
this management plan was approved by town council in mid-June of 2009.
This one was.
So this has already been applied.
The FMB VMP? What it was?
Myers Beach Dune Management
Vegetation
Plan.
management plan? Management plan. One side says Dune management plan, and the other says vegetation management plan.
It was right before a big renourishment project, wasn't it?
19, so this existed before the, before the town applied for a permit for the renourishment, right?
Probably in conjunction with, I think it was all kind of,
Well, like you said, it takes a couple of years anyway, so 2009 to 2012. 2011. I'm just trying to make sense of it. precedes the other, and which one was one based on the other?
Yeah, I would say it was in conjunction with, I mean, you're investing a whole lot of money in sand, you want to keep it in place with vegetation.
Right, absolutely. And at this point, you said you have no idea now where that sand would be, where that renourishment would occur.
The current renourishment plan that we're working on,
Right,
we're planning on construction fiscal year 21, 20.
right. But I mean, where along the beach? Place it's,
As of right now, the previous permitting design was from Bowditch. I believe, I'll have to double check. I think what was actually, where sand was placed was to, right where the new Margaritaville project's gonna be, just south of the pier.
that's the pier, exactly,
Right.
yeah.
However, I think permit itself, so the idea is you want to permit as much as you can, or anything you think you're going to need sand for in the next 15 years. It's a 15-year permit. You don't want to have to go back. It's an expensive process, et cetera. So I believe they permitted, may have been to Sterling or Lanark area. I think CL is down to that area, so it makes sense that they permitted down to that area. And, also all of that area is considered FDEP critically eroded, so I'd have to check the R marker in the permit to see what they actually permitted to, but it was further south than what they put sand on. Makes sense.
Right.
What about building dunes in front of Wyndham in that area, Chad?
I'm all for it. It's just a matter of getting the properties on board. I think you could do some really cool stuff with
Yeah.
some dune bunkers and creating a bit of maybe a more private area for those condos to have maybe some tiki huts or something behind there.
It would be a different project. It's not in,
Yeah, the
talking
difficulty
about.
there is that, and this is probably why nothing much has been done, is there's very limited public access, and therefore it's not really eligible for TDC and or state funding. So we need to hold hands and together to either create access points to qualify for some state funding and or TDC funding, as well as
an access point just has to be wide enough for people. It doesn't have to include parking, right?
in order to qualify, it's got to be in the vicinity of bus stops. There's a formula I think you get for every bus stop within a quarter mile of a 5-foot, you get like 50 feet of qualifying shoreline, up to 200 feet within that quarter mile for every bus stop. So if you have 4 bus stops within a quarter mile of a 5-foot wide access, that's a public access, you get 200 feet of funded shoreline, paying 50% for that, is my understanding.
I do think that, the Wyndham probably isn't interested
No.
in putting dunes in the existing beach. Part of the problem is they're just so low lying because of all the raking that they flood when it rains or whatever gets in there. It takes a while for it to get out.
Sorry, did I misunderstand your question?
No, that's my question, yeah. Is there anything in the works to do anything about that? Because it's a mess, that's the way it is.
Private
It's all-
property, yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean,
all
I can,
flooded.
I certainly can reach out to the property owners and see, generally, if, somebody wants something, they're usually asking the town for it. I know there's been engineering studies done in the past, and, so they have an idea of how much sand they would need to create a positive grade. And I believe in that engineering study, you need to put a, 2-foot high dunes to hold the grade. So I believe those property owners are aware of what they could do. I think it's just a matter of there's some disagreement maybe on whether everybody has the money to do it and vegetation there.
Right. Thanks.
So on the renourishment program, again, if they, I know last time there was, I think, one holdout that didn't want to sign on, right? That was at Sunset Grill at the time. It was the beer hall then, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I've heard of, what, basically properties that that didn't want the vegetation, they got some sand maybe offshore, water where the mean high, because it's not their land, so it's state land, they can put sand there, so like their property kind of became a fishbowl for a year or so.
Right, right, so that would, same thing would happen along, let's say the center of the island even, where a homeowner decides not to, type of thing, they'd skip that, right? They'd stop the renourishment.
If the project went that far and that area was, budgeted and for sand, I think for TDC, we only applied for same area as where sand was put last time. So right now, I believe
Okay, so it's the north end again.
maybe, if there's a impetus to extend the project further south, I think there's been some talk about extending it down to Leonardo Arms area. There's definitely some significant erosion.
Through Newton Park, Newton Park is bad, as you know.
Yep. We, I'm actually going to talk to T to see if there's any availability for emergency funding of a local split. So waiting, I think we'll talk to DC staff or committee members or to see what the options are there. County is going to be bringing in sand to Lynn Hall in a few weeks.
Is that right?
Where do they get it from, Chad?
There's you have to have mines that qualify for the color and grain size, and my understanding is there's 4 mines that qualify, particularly because of logistics. A lot of contractors will choose Stewart Mine, which is I think near Immokalee.
Yeah.
That has the compatible sand. FDEP is very particular; it has to be compatible with the beach that is being put on.
It is Florida. It's not coming from very far away. It's not coming from Montana or something.
No. That would be very expensive sand.
Okay.
That's it. All right, so as far as the dune management plan, though, it's, you're still looking at it, whether or not we want to, last time we spoke about this, we felt like it was kind of all over, it needed to be maybe updated or modernized or.
I think what I'd like is, pros and cons, just hear everybody's pros and cons, what they think of it, and, the idea of extending this program kind of island-wide. I think the proof's in the pudding with the north end. Definitely had a lot more resilience to storm surge, areas that did not have dunes. So.
I have a quick question for you here, Chad. So again, with the MBZs, those were all on the north end. That was part of the renourishment. They all signed up, and they're actually managing their dunes, correct?
You asking me if I've checked?
No, it's just only the north end, meaning that nobody from the north end down, literally from Times
Yeah, this
Square
doesn't apply to
south, doesn't apply to anybody.
Right.
Oh, actually, some of these special, the special management practices in here, like raking within 2 feet and stuff like that, that's not, can be allowed down there, correct? Because it's not a managed beach zone?
Right.
Okay. Those should all be, fall under whatever our current ordinance is and FDEP rules, correct?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Just curiosity, so what you're planning on for Newton Park, is that going to go 200 feet beyond Newton Park, or is that just going to be Newton Park?
I don't have engineering on it. Answer your question, I don't have any.
Does this seem like, that narrow area that if you just got one little bit of sand, it's not going to migrate pretty quickly?
150 feet per line.
There's actually, is there verbiage on management of the dunes as well in the comprehensive plan, LDC, to dig in there to see what that
Yeah,
says?
no, I mean, it's referenced in the management plan, the comprehensive plan.
Right, so the aspects that are in the comprehensive plan are pulled out in this? That's what we're looking at here?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. All over the place. Like I said, I looked at the ordinance, and the ordinance really wasn't much at all. I mean, there's one article in there really about seems like, on the beach management.
On dune protection, yeah.
Protection.
But then you look to the raking section, there's, criteria there. You look to the zoning criteria, there's criteria for the EC district, which is also the beach, which goes into what, land uses are allowed, the limited to 40-inch, access, except.
The last question I have is what would be the impetus for a property owner to sign up, I mean, to sign up for, let's say, an MBZ program to create dunes on their property without getting the renourishment, without getting the sand for free, because that's the leverage right now we have, correct?
I mean, I think, just this last experience with Ada, every time we have a storm, I think a lot of people's eyes are open, and especially if you consider this was just a tropical storm, Category 1 hurricane.
Right.
Imagine if it was a Cat 5 grinding the coast.
It's 100 miles away.
Right.
Yeah.
I hadn't reread this again before this meeting, but did this also provided plantings, correct? The homeowners purchased the plantings, or is that also done by the town?
I'm not sure. I believe, I don't know what was done with this project, done by the county.
Murph did have a project in the past where the town paid for plants to put into property owners who were not getting renourished. There's a lot of beachfront property people who
Oh, yeah.
Spoke with many people just in the line of work I do after Hurricane Sandy. And I remember a few of them telling me about that there was, right before Hurricane Sandy, they were offering to build dunes, and a lot of the residents and people were against it because it was going to take their view away. After Hurricane Sandy, they definitely wanted those dunes.
Right.
There's actually many articles about it. There's a New York Times article about it, so maybe that.
One thing too that may be a possibility is with the work that Chad did in looking at the effect of this hurricane, to work with the EPIO to put together something for the benefits of the dune. Because really the escarpments are a sign of the dunes. Without the plants,
Would have just kept running, sure.
smaller escarpment much further up.
Have any erosion at your place? Any escarpment?
Like I said, we actually gained sand, but because of the plants, we had some very steep, blown dunes. They were covered with plants. It hadn't been topped over, and they got topped over and just moved all that sand into low-lying areas, and we got upgraded. So,
Right.
what works is that the sand will remain in the waves as long as the velocity is high enough, and once it slows down, it drops the sand. But the vegetation slows it down, it isn't going too high, and it drops the sand. Before they got to our wall, which is like.
Right. All right. Another question, you guys got questions? Anybody else have on this?
Are we looking for town approval and resident approval, beach owner approval? I mean, what
I
is
think-
it we need?
I think the reason this is on
Pursue.
our list really is not really approvals or anything. It's whether or not we want to contribute to look at the dune management plan to see if it needs updating, modernization, how it works.
And, is it something we want to extend island-wide, recommend to be extended island-wide, I should.
Mm-hmm. possibly with modification, I mean, I said, I thought it was a financial, carrot, for a lot of these beach owners to get the, you know, again, the county's paying for the plantings, the state or whoever's, you know, paying for the sand.
I mean, again, that's the pros and cons and feedback that we're looking for, yeah.
No, exactly. So the question would be, you know, in that case, if they're not going to get renourished, then it'd have to be trucked in probably versus nourished from Gulf, correct?
How's that?
Well, what you're saying is that this renourishment plan is only for the north end of the island. Let's say somebody mid-island decides, yeah, I want to be part of the dune management plan. You know, make a dune. How do you propose to make the dune? You bring a dredge out there and pump up?
No, but if you plant, catch sand.
Okay, right, so there's no sand moving, like I said, if they naturally just want the sand, right, to plant, and it'll grow, right, okay.
I look at the advantages are, as the people knowing, right? So if they're going to put in dune plan, what's their liability?
Right.
And you want it to be, you want to encourage them to plant, not like plant and then pull it out, but you want to have a liberal enough where they're not going to feel like they're trapped if they put in plants on their own fruition.
Right,
Or, you know,
that's the thought, right,
they
once I
want
put
with
it
the
in, I'm
vegetation.
done, right, I can never remove them. I mean, from my opinion is, yeah, we'd like to participate. I would like to actually go through here one more time with a fine tooth comb to see actually what modifications or additions or things that maybe aren't kosher, you know, kosher anymore. We're back in 10 years ago.
might be a separate agenda item that Murph wants to take on, is how to encourage people to put in dune plants.
That'd be part, I mean, I think that would be part of it if we did decide to have a updated or even extend the dune management plan about the entire beach, then yeah, it would be great to put a program together. We'll talk to condo owners, that type of thing.
There's a lot of about the plants, because a lot of people think they're just weeds that are in people's yards. I had someone who was moving onto the island ask me if anybody does anything about, you know, the mess, and she was talking about some propagules that were accumulated on it, you know, and
Right.
to them, it's a natural beach, mostly private property. Part of the beauty instead of,
Their timeline, going. All right, well, we'll kick to the next subject there. So I would say that for the next meeting, we leave it on there and come up with, actually put more thought into it.
Okay.
We're good? Leave that on?
I think we definitely should
Yeah, I think it's a huge subject.
Include the
That's
whole
why it needs
island.
to be thought about
Yeah,
some
include
more.
the whole island and come up with incentives and educate in any way we can think of, because that's what's going to maintain this island. We'll lose it if we don't.
Of course, yeah.
We need to build our dunes.
I wonder if insurance is less expensive if you live on the beach and you have big dunes. They're more protective.
It's your specialty, isn't it, Jen? Insurance? No?
I don't believe they get down
Not
to
selling
that.
insurance.
So,
I don't think they get down to that level.
go around the dunes to the guy in front of you.
Look at word, you know.
It's the problem too, right? If you've only got 75% of the property, doesn't that just create a funnel? Almost like the beach accesses. How much water comes up those beach accesses, how much sand goes up there? It's just straight paths. The water just runs straight out the accesses.
All right, what's the question?
Well, the accesses, the beach accesses are all straight for the most part, and that seems, if you look, I mean, after a storm like this, did you see how much water and sand ran out through the accesses? Obviously, because there's no dunes, they're funneling it straight through there. So,
That's
to
the
my
proof.
point, if you've only got 75% of the dune, that other 25% is just gonna funnel that water and actually gain velocity, because it's being funneled, and rush
Right.
even harder at the property.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I envision dunes, especially managed beach dunes, I think of like a series of bunkers.
Mhm.
So you can get creative with it.
Right?
Necessarily need to be one frontal dune.
There-
Or you
there's-
can often see, I mean, something I've learned from Mr. Bill is, where the access or whatever is, you put kind of like a comma on it so that, you know, yeah, there's a straight runway there, but, you know, there's a comma kind of over that, so it still has, you know, you almost get 100% coverage.
Barricade there, more or less.
You know, with ours, we had a traditional walkway. Then some time ago, we put an island, we call that, in the middle of the walkway. And the idea was just like you were talking about, Steve. But you don't have it doesn't have a clear path to go up. But now we have a fork that goes around that island. And with talking with Chad, that the way it's written right now, we're supposed to only maintain one path, and we kind of two
Yeah,
as we went around it. So
around Flamingo, down there too, there's little forks.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing, I don't think. Well,
I know what you said. We had a meteor tsunami a few years ago. Water all up in our house, but on Connecticut Street, it went halfway down the block. You know, and of course, once it gets to the pavement, then it's running.
right.
You get into the storm water system, the new storm water system? And?
I could ask Stormwater.
Yes, let's pursue this dune management. All possible ways.
Right.
What's our storm surge? Does anybody know? Janetta? Or on the island?
Well, what was it?
Feed.
Did we get an estimate on around what it was?
I don't know at all. Bill, did you hear what the surge was
Don't know.
officially calculated as?
But, you know, probably varied around the island, because I noticed that, like, to us, we did from Sanibel, Captiva. Captiva seemed to get the worst of it further north. The wind was coming more out of the south.
South and
So the
east
north
too,
part of the
actually,
island
yeah.
got
I mean, the
too,
bay
so-
side really brought water up even higher, I
Yeah.
think.
A lot of flooding.
Yep.
You know, the high part of the island is Estera Boulevard. It slopes down from there, so.
Okay, let's move on. What are we doing at the time? 4:15? 13? Exotic vegetation management. Any thoughts?
Isn't there a plan before, like, to try to, want to come up with a survey, walk neighborhoods and,
Was the native gardeners, we thought that we could drag those folks in, but
Ask the Lee, and that goes through the Lee County Extension Service, so I don't know
Right.
if I have permission to do that, but I could ask them, because then they could get all those gardeners to volunteer hours to do that.
just even just notifying the homeowners, saying that you a giant green pepper.
And you just wanted to focus on the Brazilian peppers and the Australian pine.
and pines for sure, yeah. We talked also about first focusing in the EC zone.
Is there anything else, Chad, besides those two we should?
So, yeah, I mean, me as staff, what I'm asking is if y'all could make a recommendation appropriate for council to appropriate budget for staff to address exotic vegetation issues in the EC zone. That's my concern. Not that streets are not a concern, it's just I'm going to prioritize resources, creating funds to Scaevola, Australian pines, a little bit of carrot wood, Australian pines and Scaevola and Brazilian pepper are probably the top three offenders out in the dunes. You know, in the CWA area, working with FWC, and in the rest of the beach area, working with the private upland owners. And talking, whenever I talk to, you know, somebody's asking me questions on their dune, et cetera, hey, there's an Australian pine, you know, what do you know, would you mind getting rid of it? And usually it's like, yes, I would love to get rid of it, but it's a matter of getting a recommendation to town council to appropriate funds for that, for staff to get that done.
And the funds would be for the removal of the vegetation?
Yeah, and a lot of it, you know, there's some places where they have a specimen tree and they don't want it removed, I get it. But there's a lot of sprouts out there where, you know, right now I can carry it out on my shoulder, whereas in a few years it's gonna be heavy equipment time, and that's where it gets tough, you know, out in the dune.
Yeah.
I think we should do that.
Absolutely.
Do you have a budget? Do you know how much?
Well, I'm not an expert on budgeting and the bureaucracy of that. I think, y'all making a motion to recommend the council to appropriate budget and leaving it at that, without quantifying it. enough.
I think I already know the answer to this question, but can that be part of a permitting process? Like, I know of a place where they have Australian pines and they're in the middle of permitting some buildings.
There's nothing in the code per se exotic vegetation is not mentioned in the code. I'm aware of.
Thought there was some preemptive state law that said that municipalities can't dictate when they cannot be planted.
Well, Sanibel,
You can, there's definitely code, in Marco Island, there was code enforcement to remove exotic vegetation all the time.
noxious plants is what they like to call it. Noxious plants. Like you said, it's the EPPL list.
FLEPPC, yeah.
Yeah, PPC, and then
Florida
also they have
exotic
Florida,
pest
there's a
plant.
Florida admin code too that has a list of noxious weeds. So in Marco Island, you're not allowed to plant either of those. I don't know if you're not even allowed to possess them, meaning if they're growing there already.
Right, yeah, and it's kind of complaint driven, or at least it was back then, but here, I think, most people want to do the right thing. It's just, some people, they just don't even want to touch the vegetation in the dune for fear of doing something wrong. So just educating them, you got a Brazilian pepper here, hey, this is scaevola, this is the exotic scaevola, this over here is the native scaevola, we can remove this one. This is Brazilian pine, especially in the CWA where you want to take out those perching areas for, perching areas for raptors, shorebirds, or even crows, I should say.
I actually looked at Sanibel too, because I had thought I had heard that they had a native plant law there. You have to, if you're gonna plant.
And a lot of times when they do preemptive laws, they mean no new laws.
I couldn't find that. The only thing I found on Sanibel is they had very granular laws about the Australian pines, to actually top them is what they end up doing with them, I guess, because they're worried about the wind damage of the property damage caused by trees falling. So there they have, I think, if you actually have them, it's possible you can't plant them, but if you have them, they can come in and tell you have to top them all. But they do have a list of 8 exotics that you're not allowed to have. So it's very specific. It wasn't anything that was native. It was 8 exotics, and starting with Brazilian pepper and each put punk tree. Some of these I haven't even heard of. Punk tree. But the Earl leaf acacia. That one.
I haven't seen much of that here on the island.
Java plum.
Yeah, I've seen
I had a Java plum across this street
seen a
from
little
me. You
bit.
can actually eat those, yeah.
Yeah, some people say they're medicinal, but yeah, it's a category 1. Java plum, and then,
Berry lead tree. It's not your normal exotics to me.
yeah, lead tree, yep. I haven't seen any lead tree here. I've seen it in Marco.
Potato. So it was,
Air potatoes, a vine. I haven't,
that was
It's all
interesting.
over
It was
against
just these
that.
8.
all
I
over
found
where?
that to be.
It's fast preserve.
Is it really?
I think they've actually released some of the bills, right?
Yeah, we've tried and removed a lot of it, maybe last year or so. We had a project where we went in there and removed a lot of that air potato, but it's still there.
Right, yeah, it's difficult.
We just made a dent, that's all.
Right.
Project.
There is one of these, I think, risky but sometimes effective programs to release a parasite air potato.
I don't know if they did that, or I know we spoke about it. I don't know if they did it, Bill.
It never ends well.
I know they've done it in other places.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. One is we want to look at the EZ zone, as we mentioned. Appropriate funds to remove, but also is there anything that anybody's interested in doing about exotic, an ordinance even? Promoting native, outside of, from a legislative standpoint, prohibiting exotic plants, were preempted.
I don't know if anybody's really going to Home Depot and picking up Brazilian pepper and sticking in their yard anymore.
Yeah, it gets tough. I've seen it both ways, where it can just basically have neighbors calling in and neighbors, and a little bit like that. I think,
It all works.
right, so,
You know, the three tools that you have.
All right, sure.
Direct action, legislation, and education. So I think a lot of people have no idea what these plants are and the damage they do. Just
You want to investigate a program just to, community awareness to eradicate some of these
I
pervasive
think we should
exotics?
suggest that the council budget money, as Chad said, a hefty amount of money, so that the people who already are working here, we can give them another job, moving these exotic plants.
I think that, I kind of agree with the Ed saying is, focus on the EC zone
Right.
as far as
Yeah.
funding goes. As
Right.
far as private property, it's a different word, it's more complicated. Well, this is, mind you, might allow the EC zone. But to go through and figure out, okay, first identify where you can see, and then reach out to the property owners and say, you've got these invasive. Try to figure out a way to incentivize them to remove it. Whether it's
Or Shannon. She
whether it's
can sniff out a Brazilian pepper from 20 miles away.
incentives, financial incentives, helping match some of the cost of removing them, or providing, volunteers to pull stuff out.
Like the easy, definitely recommending a request to council. I think that's an easy one. And I think doing that, but it sounds like the second piece is a little bit more complicated, and I like the fact that we focus on the education piece. Don't know what it is. There may be a contingent of people that will make the right decision, right? Not if it's gonna require heavy equipment to get it out, but at least from the smaller pieces, and that may start to address it. If in parallel, we can work on a partnership with Lee County Extension to get people out here to at least identify how big really quantify how big the problem is. I think that would be helpful, but then you've also now started to tap into that volunteer piece. Because I would think that you could get student volunteers to come out and
Master gardeners are required to put in hours. Here. My class has to put in 75 hours this next year. And every year thereafter it's 45 hours. And because of COVID, people are really short on hours because they can't go out and do classes and this, that, and other things with. This would be perfect. They could catch up on their hours by just walking the streets of Myers Beach and.
Right? Would they do an inventory, sort of assay the island as to?
Well, they could if we asked them. I guess I need approval to ask them. I didn't.
Yeah, I think as a
Feel that?
group,
I
what do you
don't
guys
know.
think?
How
I think
does
that
that
would be an awesome.
I think it's great to ask them, but just want to make sure we have a second step in mind.
Right.
Once we identify it, then we'll say, well, we will go through and contact the property owners. They come up with a way to.
Right, if they can put the address down, that'd be awesome too.
yeah, I think you have to come up with some sort of a grid plan on how it's gonna.
Yeah, here's 3 or 4
survey.
streets.
Yeah, the management
Yeah, oh
of it.
yeah.
Where does the management of it fall?
Most of them are all older retired people, so I'm thinking they're just gonna have a checklist of this, that, and nothing, and this is the address, and go down the line.
I think that would be, absolutely awesome. Do that, to
Yeah.
have that, just that information to be able to take a look at and then put a program together to say, hey, how do we eradicate them, or how do we communicate to these people to eradicate them, or,
Well, and I think you wanna be a little bit more thoughtful too, if you're gonna send out these volunteers to look at this stuff, right? Is to look at, okay, so you need location, type, probably need some sort of a sizing piece, because to Chad's comment, some of them can be ripped out easily, some require.
Right.
Right, and so there's gotta be some sort of a sizing piece to things, right? And then, if there's a way to, take snapshots of what we're looking at, it might be helpful too, right? And maybe that's an easier way to record the data, because most cell phones will also, GPS coordinates on it. Right, so, could we send them out, but again, it has to be, okay, this is the person, right, there's some documentation they probably have to do for Lee County, but, right, this is the person, this is where they went to, this is what they saw, here's a snapshot of what that is, right? And then from their perspective, it's, I don't know if it's small, medium, or large.
Do collaborations on Google Maps as well, where you share a map and load different points on that map and take a picture of what's at that point. That
Yeah, so that's another step. Yeah, I don't understand the back end technology piece of that, but would it be easy, is that easy enough to do off of a cell phone?
yeah, I mean, something like Google Maps.
I think we need to be
Blur.
careful to ask people to go wandering around looking in people's yards. People are gonna be taken aback by that.
But I
I'm
think,
And
thinking
if
on the
they're taking
street.
photos
I'm
and
thinking
making
of
notes,
taking the street, and then you can always use someone's address to Google their house. I mean, if we went that step, I don't think the people walking the street are gonna Google the property.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, what do you think, Rose? I mean, it's your army.
I think they would just go around with the checklist thing, and the sizing's a great suggestion, because it is gonna be small, medium, large kind of thing in heights, and it could be, something 10 feet or under, 20 feet or above.
Right.
And then record the address, and then if down the road to do something like the Google Maps, that would be, is pretty invasive, that's invasive. itself. But it could be done, I mean, look at someone's property, I mean, you could look at someone's property and look at what's on it.
I like the idea, the scientist in me likes the idea of that, but I also wonder if there's a way to put some officiality what they're doing, right? And I don't know if it's maybe one of the articles that we do in the paper, if it's something along that line saying, hey, look, here's a collaboration. I mean, think of it from a story perspective. It's a great story, right? Here's this collaboration with these master gardeners, right? Marine Resource Task Force, County Extension, looking at how to simply quantify the amount of invasive species that we have, and a way to then look forward and try to protect, our island home. I think if people do that, and then, there's some t-shirt, I hate to say t-shirt, but t-shirt or something, right? People recognize Turtle Time by their shirts that they wear. And if those people are, do you know what I mean? And I don't want to make it a bigger project than it needs to be, but then as those people are walking around, you've got two pieces going on, right? I'm sure the master gardeners are incredibly educated, right, about these invasive species. When a homeowner sees them doing this, they're probably going to bend their ear, right?
Yeah, you would think if you saw someone walking around your street, the clipboard, yeah, you'd probably ask them.
I know on my street, you'd get stopped 3 or 4 times and probably end up spending an hour with my wife having a conversation about the plants in the yard, right? So, but it would be nice if people sort of had some sort of a heads up that this was going on and this was an effort that we were doing and why this is important.
I'm gonna write up the handout, and say this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
The other thing to do, maybe tackle that neighborhood by neighborhood. So if you get cooperation within a neighborhood, focus on that neighborhood. If there's another neighborhood where you don't, you're on the list.
There's also a couple of Facebook groups that are island area specific, like there's a South End Facebook group, and I know there's a Mid-Island Facebook group, and Nextdoor is an app that people commonly use. If we put out some messaging on that too, saying, once we get this sort of organizing, saying over the next couple of weeks, if you see these people, don't be taken aback. This is what we're trying to do. And that should be enough to stimulate the Coconut Telegraph.
Well, we can make an advisory too.
Put it in the newspaper.
PIO,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, put it
Put it in the newspaper.
Put it
That
And I'm
way-
supposed to write January, so that would work, because by the time the Lee County Extension Office approves this and gets it out to the master gardeners, and they have to sign up online to commit to activities, so once that all gets done, it would be January, so.
I think a newspaper article, I mean, legally, you can walk the street or boat the canal, you cannot walk on somebody's property.
Oh, right, yeah.
And if it's outdoors and you can take a picture, I have a drone, you can take a picture. You can't take a picture through a window, but you can take a picture of anything outdoor. People included. That's why celebrities walking outside, they get a picture taken, because they can't stop it. In public, you get to get public pictures.
Pretty much invasive.
Yeah, you'd be
I mean, but if you have the article and you have this stuff, I think
invited in, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the idea is if this could be phase one of that, to your point, what's the actions, right? Here's phase one of the program, and it's all being sort of done at one point, and it's being thoughtfully put out to people through the newspaper so people know what's going on.
I think that's a pre-communication like that before they go walking would be great.
If someone is walking, like I said, someone wants to bend their ear or talk about the plants in their yard, and that may be the first step towards removal. Because if then someone's saying, oh, this is a great plant, this one is not, this one,
Yeah.
pepper, and this is why it's not good, then they may take it out on their own accord.
Well, good, I'd say, and I think that would provide an inventory to really see if there's a real problem, and then we can decide from there what to do.
It also gives us, like, we're focusing on the one area right now with asking for budget from the town, right?
Mhm.
If we have an idea of where there's higher groupings of this, will allow us to do a more
Actually
targeted-
extend it, yeah.
Yeah.
I would
or
do
at
it in
least
2
priority,
phases, though.
yeah.
I would do it in 2 phases
Right.
first.
Chad already knows where there's stuff that needs to be removed.
Yeah,
They're kind of two separate.
Yeah, but it gives you, having this analysis, this data gives you a lot of information that should be.
And then depending on how much there is, then that kind of goes with the money portion of it.
exactly. Good, so I'll make a couple motions here. So the first motion is to provide staff with guidance for the EC zone, for exotic vegetation management. First in the EC zone, to hopefully appropriate funds to remove the exotic vegetation in the EC zone. Does that make sense?
As town council.
Advise town council. We advise town, that's right.
Appropriate funds for
Right.
product removal in the
Right again. All right, so the motion is to advise council that we would like to move exotic vegetation in the EC zone and appropriate funds to do such.
Second that.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, good.
I guess Ed, it didn't help you too much with exotics.
Sorry?
Ed, the storm didn't help you too much with exotics.
Yeah. I see, there was some that was ripped out, closer to the ocean, but there's a lot of sprouts going on.
Yeah. All right, so I have a second one here too, motion here for the group. And that motion is to provide Rose the authority to approach the Lee County Extension, to assemble the master gardeners, come onto the island, to do an inventory of S1. Make sense? Invasives? Yeah, anybody that knows their classifications? Rose?
Classifications for invasives,
Yeah.
in any category 1 on the FLEPP. As far as category 2, but category 2 gets a little sticky because one of the category 2s is actually protected by the town.
What is that? Okay. Does it make sense, Rose, that it's a category 1?
An emphasis on the Australian plant, Australian peppers.
Right.
What was the other one that,
Ebola.
military?
Oh, is it Mexican petunia?
They're kind of military or something that Shannon was.
Umbrella trees are, those are category 2s, they may be category 1.
Scheffler.
Sure, I gotta look it up.
Do we have to specify? Why don't we just say
Well,
exotics?
we want to give,
I think category 1 is probably fine because there's already people who know this stuff who have categorized it, right?
right, hopefully, at least, I mean, they can at least take a look at that list, and the people that are, the master gardeners are familiar with them can then identify them. That's the category 1 is the, what's that list? The FEE,
FL, Florida
Florida,
Exotic Pest Plant Council.
yeah, list. The list. All right, so, the motion is again to give Rose authority to contact the Lee County Extension to assemble the master gardeners to come on the island to quantify or inventory the category 1 invasives on the FEPPL list.
Second that.
FLEP.
LE. I have a different one, actually. Okay. I second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it carries. I have I had written it down.
You know, when it comes to fruition.
FEPPL, Florida Exotic Pest Plant List.
Plant Council list.
See, that's the one I got off the internet.
But if this comes to
Also
fruition too, it might be MRF members to buddy up with some of the people who are,
Sure, we can organize that.
Yeah.
But like we said, it probably won't be until January at least, so.
hey, it's got some time.
We'll keep that on the agenda also, just to firm it up, more than anything, just to see if there's any feedback from Rose at the time. Sound good? All right. There. And last but not least, a Good Citizen Award, the Murphy. Any Murphys?
I have one.
Two. I
I've been-
had one on the bank too that I
Yeah.
forgot to use,
Well,
but go
we
ahead.
can
No,
put
no, go ahead.
mine
You have
on
a
the
new one.
bank too, but this is pretty cool. I've been really lucky to find people that are really caring. I got a phone call from Crow to go rescue a vulture. I don't know if any of you have tried to catch a vulture, but it's not easy. And I was called to Diversified, and many of the workers there stopped what they were doing to help me. And all the guys were just really incredible for hours. They stopped what they were doing to help. So I'd like to nominate the employees of Diversified. I do have a picture of the vulture and of the helpers, so.
Okay, good.
What happened to it, Jen? Why was it?
So it was x-rayed and it had some bruising on the pectoral.
Oh,
So, but it's gonna be fine.
I have a Murphy suggestion too. I don't know whether we want to go this route or not, but we have a lot of people who fish from the shore, and there is a man who fishes regularly, and what I like about it is it's not only catch and release, but he doesn't even take the fish out of the water. He releases them in the water. And I just think that maybe he's worth a Murphy.
You have you have a photo?
I have two photos where in all his handsomeness as well as his phone number, and I told him that Chad might call him.
And Chad's your alter ego?
Should we be questioning her motives here?
That's your rambunctious?
No, he's
Right. All right. And so
but I don't know if we want to get into that or not. That's what I thought.
I think that's a great suggestion. I think
I
so
think
far
that
they're
catch and
all
release is a
music
good
to my
idea.
ears.
And the reason I'm saying that is I oftentimes see fish that have been caught and then left on the beach.
Yeah, they drag them.
And
to
it
drag
just
'em on
seems so
up onto the
disrespectful
sand.
to me.
Yeah.
Either take it and bury it or eat it or
Well, the
let it go.
vultures are good for taking care of
well,
We
that.
never see,
larger
we don't see
fisheries are-
vultures on our beach.
Oh, that's true. They do swoop down. I have seen them swoop down to pick up a fish or garbage
Yeah.
or something and then fly off inland.
That's why I thought we might promote the idea of catch and release with this.
Mhm.
Not take them out of the water. I think it's a big thing.
Whenever you can do that, and yeah, even to hold them properly is, I see people holding them wrong all the time. Damage. We've got, right now we've got the vulture, we've got the fishermen, and we have two in the bank. One was the sand spur team. Second was one I had forgotten earlier, and that was the Indiana girls that were picking up garbage. This was in the turtle season. We're collecting cigarette butts, actually.
We have a
That's a-
photo
that's a-
for the
that's a-
sand spurs? Did we get a photo of
No,
somebody?
we'd have to get one from,
Yeah, we wanted to get the teens
Yeah.
or somebody,
no photo.
show young people.
Wasn't chosen, so we just let that slide again. So that would have to come from Brad, I think, has them, right?
I've got photos of
The group,
various groups doing the sand spurs.
okay, so we have four to choose from. New ones, we've got the vulture rescue. That's under animal rescue. We've got the fishermen, which,
Catch and release.
fishing practices. Got the Sandspur team. Taking an opportunity to help the island. And we've got the litter pickup with the Indiana 10-year-old girls.
Oh, it's a lot of choice.
Boy, that's more, yeah, well, they all go in the bank. Let's
They're all
face it,
good,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, they all, whatever doesn't make it out today stays. That's how I like to
That's
do it. It's
good.
always nice to have a few in the bank, as Bill well remembers.
I don't think we've ever had this choices, that's right.
So any,
Is any of, one of them more timely?
ones, yeah, the turtle pickup, I don't know if they're necessarily during well,
There's no turtle pickup.
no, they were there, that's why they were,
Oh,
that's how I got to know them.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
talking about the litter one, yeah.
That one's actually, can work for a while.
Last month was a litter one, so
And Spurs.
Right, that's why I brought
Mixing
it
things
up
up a
that
little
way,
bit.
exactly, because we have a lot of those, yeah, so,
No, the other thing is, with the Sand Spurs, that's a single event that happened once, but, when are you gonna rake again?
Tells me it's okay.
You know, before it was like, start growing, and I think last time we talked, you were,
On down there now, they wiped out by the water.
oh, really? Okay. Oh. Say we can use it as a way to get some people to volunteer and go and pick up stragglers, but
yeah.
I was like, Ed helped us out with that.
But they'll be back. Should we go with that because it's,
Do we think there is an opportunity to get down there and clean some more out?
I don't know, it may be a while before they come back up now.
They've
They'll be back, we just, when is the thing.
been rolled over, yeah.
It looked like they did a great job.
So, do you want to make a motion on one of the Murphys? To rescue?
Everybody, which one they want to do and see which one gets them.
Yeah, okay, that's a good way to do it. Okay, who'd like to vote for the vulture rescue?
let's vote for the, yeah.
I like the vulture rescue.
Okay,
Great photo.
okay.
We can also maybe talk about how important vultures are to our island.
Why don't you go there?
Like you already,
There you go.
Yeah, it sounds like it's I
Thank you.
wasn't gonna vote, so that didn't count anyway, so that's 2 to 3, so, okay. The motion that's, vulture rescue, second? Did we get a second?
I'll second
Three
that.
people voted for.
You voted? Well, that was an unofficial
you still
vote.
need to do the motion, yeah.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I,
Opposed?
They go through the
All
motions.
right, it's the vulture, that's right, that's what I'm learning. All right, vulture rescue it is, and we've got, the fishermen. Hold on to the hunks.
I'll tell him he's
hunks
in
photo.
reserve.
Okay, the Sandspur team and the Indiana girls too.
You're gonna release him this time.
Good. Well, I'm glad to see that we're back on the Murphy, sniffing those out, so that's good. When we sit here and don't have any, it's uncomfortable. Well, last but not least, we've got, article, I saw the, we didn't have one in this last Observer, so it'll be,
Did it today?
oh, the one out, that we had.
Yeah,
the-
I sent it to them last week, and they didn't put it in last week's, but I thought they were gonna put it in this,
Okay.
was it in?
Well,
I
actually,
haven't
thought
checked today.
Half my paper was missing, but it wasn't. Okay, but that's on its way. So next up is,
It's disappointing.
Doc Clapham, right?
Yeah. Speed zones.
Greg, yep, speed zones, and, it's due December 4th. Your date? You'd like it, correct, Bill?
Whatever's the weekend well, actually, a week or so before,
It's December 4th, sounds good, let's do that. And then you will get him the vulture rescue, correct?
Oh, you mean for Murphy Award?
Right, for the
Yeah.
Murphy, that goes in at the same time, so.
The picture,
we just talked about that. I actually sent everything in.
okay.
They're, it's not a real priority for them, I think, to put our stories in.
They're gonna,
Since I'm gonna do an article on speed zone, what's the status of the speed through fishtail area? I know the ordinance passed, but did the FWC,
Reading on it, wasn't there?
I think the ordinance passed, it went to the FWC, and I think according to what Ed said, is it now have to apply to change the signs.
For the manatee zone, yes. So I met with FWC or conference called with FWC and Lee County Marine Operations. Talk about. So FWC has approved the town ordinance. That was the first step that came 2 weeks ago. And about a week or a week and a half later, I had a conference call to kind of discuss the logistics of putting signs here, putting signs there. So the concerns were in Coon Key area, it looks like it will be permittable. So however, about permitted idle signs that exist there. Enforcement, because signage, you can just argue what was going on with the beach on the idle signs that are out there. But the priority is to get those signs all year round. As you go north, you have that 25 mile per hour channel, marked channel. However, if you look at the town's jurisdiction, it goes out 1,000 feet, which would be a year-round zone, a gap of a seasonal zone. Then you have the channel, the seasonal zone. So there was concern both from Lee County and from FWC law enforcement regarding the ability to sign it and enforce.
So, hold on a second. So right now, I thought the manatee zone that they were speaking of ran literally along Coon Key, correct? From,
The ordinance created?
right,
What the ordinance created was from Cottage Point all the way down to 1,000 feet off of the island. Now a year-round
Exception to the channel.
portion of the.
okay, with the exception of the channel because you can still run 25 miles an hour from, like you said, leaving the manatee zone, heading north away from Fishtail,
Right now you can, but until.
You will be able to inside the channel.
I don't think you understand. So in the channel, right, I mean, that's from the channel, right, running down the bay, correct, toward Coon Key, where the channel is marked. Right now, that's obviously seasonal, because that's the problem we're having. That area is going to be a all-year manatee zone, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then north of that, you'll run in the channel 25 miles per hour, correct, till you hit the next zone, which is...
That has been around manatee zone.
Yeah, right. But that section I'm talking about is still, it's not all your manatee zone, that part of the channel, you're saying? Okay, no, that was
Just that part of the channel.
correct.
Where does Coon Key end? Like, where does south? Like, where does it end? Does the
Coon Key's
channel?
it.
Where does the channel begin and Coon Key start?
there's
You know
sign,
what I'm
signage
talking
now
about?
that says 25 mile an hour. Resume, actually, there's no speed.
I can send a graphic.
You go south of
I have
that
one
area,
on
there's a
slide.
sign that says resume safe speed.
Is that sign still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think now, when you're within 1,000 feet of the island, right, and you're not inside a certain part of the channel, it's going to be manatee.
All right, now today, since it's after November 15th, which was the changeover to 25 mile an hour by the Coon Key fishtail,
Good point.
what can I do today?
It's signed.
as the sign says.
blast through their stuff.
Okay,
We're not gonna be able to enforce it without signage.
okay.
On the matter of signage, it seems like people are still, historically, it was a little bit closer. It was one piling channel marker closer to Coon Key. You would actually was the no wake zone. It got moved out to the one channel marker north.
It's always there. Didn't, the closer in one said November 15th, April 1st, you could go
It said
25.
no wake zone, but on the backside, I think it said repeat on that one too. My point is there's nothing that says you're entering it. You still don't even get out any of those signs as you're heading south into that zone. You need something that says, this is where you stop.
Oh,
People
there
are
is a
still
sign.
constantly.
In the middle of the Bay Area. One sign that says, low area, November 15th, April 1st to November 15th.
Yeah, that's not a piling even further north. There's even one by the island there too, but
I'll show you what to explain. I got pulled over by the FWC, so I looked at the pilings a little bit, signage. Oh, all right.
anyway, I feel like it needs, we boat there all the time and I wonder why you can't understand it, much less rental people. Rental boats going through there, so.
Let's try to simplify it, Ashley. No, there's not the seasonal aspects to it, and there's not, because the seasonal part was like one rule and
The seasonal
was
signs,
another.
my point is, are still all around there because after the season, once you're out of the channel, you can't run. There's only half a year you can and half a year you can't. During Manatee, in the summer you can't, and then in the winter you can run into the back bay and stuff, right? I'm talking about one that just says, no way, basically idle speed or whatever the correct terminology is. It basically starts here. Like it says resume normal speed. People see that and then they realize they can take off, I think.
So I'll send a graphic, and if y'all want to give me your feedback to avoid the sunshine law violations, and then we can.
It's just there's people blowing through there, and I just think it's because of the signage.
There's also people, if they can read the sign, they assume they can go whatever the sign says,
Right,
even though they may be half a mile away from it.
right.
some of it you're not reading at 25 miles an hour.
All right, so, members' items and reports. Like to start, Jennifer? In first? Any items or reports?
Oh, I just have a question. I'm finding a lot of sick birds on the beach, and they have like the red tide flu sickness. I'm confused why, and maybe someone can help me understand this, why FWC has not called whether there's a red tide bloom or a blue algae bloom or something, because I can feel it when I'm walking the beach, and I'm just curious if anyone has any idea.
I get a weekly email from FWC, there's no red tide.
Well,
They're
the
saying.
wildlife seems to disagree.
Hurricane
Have you
kind.
ever got that verified from Crow that they did have red tide?
I actually have a text just talking about all the birds and the symptoms that they're distributing, and the consensus from doctors and the veterinarians is that there's something going on out there.
I know that, like, when I was giving birds to Crow, that sometimes, a hook or sepsis behaves similar to when they do the red tide. And I'd also know, the other thing I was told before is that birds fly. So where are they coming from? They could be somewhere pretty far away, but like I said, it's still red tide. And friends up in Venice, they get red tide every year. No matter how big it
I
spreads.
live on the beach, and it's similar symptoms that I had during our red tide back in So people I'm talking to are also.
The other thing going around.
And also dead sea urchins. There's a lot of things that are coming up on the beach that I've noticed that are also happening in 2018. So I understand red tide could be, or a bloom could be further out, and those birds are eating the fish and the crabs and things like that further out, and then putting back in. Do they test? Where do they test in different areas? I know they test in Lover's Key, and they test at
I don't know where they're tested, but I get an email and they do testing all the way up the coast and it's undetectable right now.
Yeah, Cindy's been looking at that
Well,
too.
then that-
Anything else?
Thank you.
Rose, any?
Contacted the ocean habitat people that were creating those mini reefs that I owned about $10,000.
40,000.
And they wrote back saying they're still using that propylene line, that they didn't find anything better to use than that.
They replace it if it comes apart?
No, I don't think so.
They didn't volunteer.
No, because I had bought one last year, and it's like, no.
Not good. For that. How about you, Spillets? You got anything?
Yes, I want to give you a turtle time report. There were a record 132 nests, and we released over 7,200 live hatchlings into the Gulf, which seems like a pretty big number, over 7,000, but remember, only 1 to 4 out of every 1,000 will survive to adulthood. So we're looking at not even 30 adult turtles from that. We're not complaining. It's 132 nests, which was great. One of the major things I want to do is thank the town of Fort Myers Beach for their cooperation, especially specifically with allowing turtle time access to the beach in April during the lockdown. We actually had 5 nests that we found before turtle season began in May, and that was the town that was so cooperative and allowed us to go out and look for them. Out of the 132 nests, we had 27 nests that were drowned, and 7 of them were completely washed out by Cristobal and Sally, which were early in the season. So that 7,200 going out, although percentage-wise it's not the best we've done, it's still very good considering those washouts. The other thing I want to do is say that out of those 130 nests, we only had 9 nests disoriented by lighting, and that's thanks to Chad. He's been doing a remarkable job in facilitating the improvement in lighting compliance here on the beach. Thank you very, very much, Chad. We recognize it and appreciate it. We also want to thank the businesses and the residents because they have been very cooperative, and I think every year we become more cooperative and more turtle friendly. We hope it continues. One other thing we noticed was the difference in the number of nests on Bonita Beach in comparison to Fort Myers Beach. We had a significant lower number of nests on Bonita Beach than we usually have. We think what happened was the turtles chose Fort Myers Beach over Bonita this year, and I think a major part of that was when we were closed down during COVID and we had no activity on our beach, whereas I think Bonita was open and they had people on their beach. So being quiet makes a difference. And the only other thing I want to mention as far as turtle time goes, that if the clock in Times Square is not the one that's there now, but if it's a new one, and if it's going to have a message board or whatever, we need to make sure that those lights are turtle friendly. And a big thing would be if we just make sure that the sign is in compliance with our sign ordinance. There shouldn't be any problem. That's it from me.
Rose?
You are welcome.
Hey, anything?
I don't have anything.
Anything either?
Got a couple things to interject with here. One thing I think it might be good to try to recommend to the council is that we put those badges on the grates for the new stormwater system that says empties into the.
Oh, yeah.
And the second thing is the Palermo planting. I think I did discuss that with Murph before, that there's in front of the beach whale and in front of the 7-Eleven, there's some town-owned right-of-way, which is now just rocks and weeds, to do some native plants there. I'm meeting with the property owner tomorrow of the beach whale, and just how involved I can get him to be in the project. So that is undergoing.
Called the whale now, they dropped the beach.
After 2018.
Bill, did you say that you've brought that up already?
If you guys, if you
can't.
guys recommend it, I'll bring it up. I might anyway, but it has more weight when we say the MRF recommends.
Absolutely.
Put the badge on there.
Make a motion, we recommend we put badges on the stormwater sewers that say they drain to the, hey,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries, there you go. A recommendation, absolutely. Deal. All right, so, public comment? We do have, that's right. We have a visitor.
The record, my name is Bill Perry. Chad and I did an inspection and went to several properties yesterday up the south end of the island where there was the most amount of damage, mostly because there's no dunes. The discussion where I'm going to be bringing in sand, properties just to the north of the outrigger. And the homeowner who's owned her place for more than 60 years, family for more than father built the outrigger. I'm going to create a dune. She has no vegetation at all from the Gulf of Mexico to her house. And Ed and I both said, great, we put some dune, catch the wind-blown sand, and you won't be losing your sand that you're buying with your own money. It'll end up going to the outrigger, and your property. Ed, like to do it, it's going to take over her beach. I ask you again, that plan, try to put something together that's similar to what was done north of the pier. In fact, that'll have to be done again, because when it comes to fruition, and they're going to renourish there again, because they need it. The dunes at Royal Beach and Bel Air, they're gone, but they protected that upland property. It'll happen again. I'll have to go to them again, and they'll have to reinstate that plan. The folks will buy in again to the dunes in front of their properties where the dunes have to be replaced, and maybe additional dunes where lost. That one photo. I really feel that it should be island-wide. Because if you want buy-in from the property owners, I have to be able to tell them it's not going to take over your beach. Chad will set up a plan of a designated area will be duned, have a walkthrough, the comment out in front of it, because what you said about water coming up through the beach accesses, I work on islands all the way up to Clearwater. What they do is they put a frontal dune like this. When you go out of that access, you have to go like this. That water rushing up in. Same thing on the East Coast. It should all be part of the plan. And I should be able to tell people, don't be afraid of the sea oats. Don't be afraid of putting in sea grapes. Don't be afraid of railroad vine, dune daisies. There's a plan in place. Maintain the integrity of the dune. You can rake up to it so it doesn't take over your whole beach. You'll still have your white recreational beach area. So I'll ask that you put something together with Chad that I can tell Mrs. Johnson, I can plant your dune, hold your sand, and you'll create a high spot which will not wash away.
Okay, set the agenda for next meeting? Cool. Leave fertilizer education on there? Okay. Gonna look into and talk to about the fertilizer, right? MB dune management, do we need Times Square foliage? I think we're done there, huh? Management, exotic vegetation. Yeah, we want to keep that on there so Rose can give us an update. No, that should be enough for December.
You want to bifurcate the product management to, well, you already did recommendation, I guess, for this, but the.
Yeah, so that's really just as an update to find out where we're at with the
Right.
extension. Yeah. Hear back what Chad's got to say. We'll dig into the dune management plan too a little bit, so that's on everybody's homework. I'll have that, I think you'd sent these out originally, didn't you, Chad?
Yeah, everybody should have an electronic
We'll do
copy.
that stuff,
If
yeah.
you want something printed, just let me know and I can be at the front desk.
All right. There's anything else? We will conclude the meeting. 5:07 PM.
Move to adjourn?
Up, do I have to make a motion? At this point of the meeting, I'm
I
always
move to
ready to
adjourn.
just slide. All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Have a motion without a motion?
Make a motion without a motion, I like to make a.
Bill.
I'm still slipping, I'm still slipping on that.
Interested people, I think. are
Doing
out.
great.
It's just the, yeah, all the little bureaucracy.